Hi, this is MobileViews number 620, or maybe it's something else. I'm not sure how Todd wants to label it or use it, but I am the good Dr. John Westfall, and I'm out on a walk. And I figured that since Todd is unavailable today, this would be our MobileViews podcast, or a video, or whatever you would like to consider it. But the walk this morning is taking place in Cleveland, Mississippi. This is where I live and teach at Delta State University, and I have absolutely nothing I want to talk about in terms of teaching today. But I do have an interesting topic that maybe is relevant if you are doing any late summer travel, or you're thinking about trying to have your own version of something that you built instead of something that a mobile company built. So let's go for a walk and talk a little bit about all that. So as I said, we are in Cleveland, Mississippi, and we're walking along a trail that used to be a railroad track. This track actually ran kind of straight through the city. City is a term that is technically true. We are in a city, but this city has never been more than about 12 to 15,000 people. And these little communities along the Mississippi River have an interesting history. The railroad was on this side of the river, as you can see from this sign, and the fact that we have a railroad museum and a Chamber of Commerce now lives in the old railroad building. But the railroad on the eastern side of the Mississippi River propped up a bunch of these little towns in Mississippi. And over on the other side, the Arkansas side of the river, there were not as many towns because the railroad wasn't over there. So we have an interesting historical element to our walk this morning as we go along this walking trail, and as we talk about documenting such experiences, such as walking along a railroad trail in a town that maybe you live in or maybe you visit. Because one of the things that I think a lot of us enjoy is new experiences and travel. And one of the experiences of travel that I enjoy is documenting it, having it for future to look back on. So if you look, I now have you mounted on a neck mount for my Insta360 Luna Ultra, and you can see the little remote that I can see what you are seeing by holding that. It's a nice setup, and it's a fairly quick to get going setup. It didn't take very long this morning for me to get this ready to go and have it for the walk today. And one of the cool things about that remote is that I can give you different views. I can pan up and down. I can't even do this, which is going to look a little strange. Yeah, now you're looking at my shirt, but now you're looking at me, a view you probably don't want to see that often, so we won't keep on that view. Return back to just a view of our trail as we walk along. So going back to what I was saying about documenting and having these memories that you can look back on, like this video, wherever this video ends up, whether it is MobileViews 620 or just a prof on a walk. I did a number of those videos back around the pandemic where I was walking and talking, which is harder than you would think when you try to walk at an exercise speed. That's why there's some edits in this video. That's why you're not getting continuous John commentary. So you have these videos, you have documentation, you do something with them. At least that's in theory what you're supposed to do. And where do you store it? How do you store it? Well, for a number of years, one of the apps that I used, and I still think is not a bad app, is a product called Day One. And Day One is a journaling app. You can add in photos, videos, audio recordings. It'll record the weather. It'll record where you were. And those are nice to produce a picture of your day. Of course, then you have to actually go back to it occasionally if you actually want to enjoy the memories. And in order to do that, you have to store this journal, and the journal is synced to their cloud, so you've got the concerns about cloud storage and who owns the data and all of those possible things. So a couple of weeks ago, I thought, well, we're living in an AI era. Can I build Day One, or build an approximation of it so I can keep my journal and my travel memories and all of that local to where I'm at, and not worry about paying for another yearly subscription, not worry about another synchronization tool. So I wanted to build my own Day One. And to do that, I first had to get my journal out of Day One. So using OpenAI's Codex / ChatGPT, I had a script written that could take the JSON export from Day One and put it into a more usable file format. And the format that I chose was Markdown. And then I decided to use a product called Obsidian to become the journaling software. Basically, Obsidian is a very nice, very comprehensive Markdown viewer, which is, in essence, all it really does. It just renders Markdown. You store all of your files on your device as .md files or .text files, whatever you want to call them. And Obsidian has a ton of plugins. It has a ton of options. You can use it for a lot of different purposes, but journaling is a popular one. So Obsidian built out, or the script built out a ton of files, got everything out of Day One. Well, that is good, but then I lost some of the quick journaling tools that Day One had. Day One had the ability through Apple shortcuts to add entries. It could ingress photos and videos. It could do a lot of things that I now was without. But again, ChatGPT can build little scripts for me. So I started a script, or I had it build a script that would take snippets of text that I could send it through Apple shortcuts, which was very simple because all I had to do was have a shortcut, write a new Markdown file to my iCloud drive, where my Obsidian Vault, which is just a collection of Markdown files, lives. And so my initial plan was, okay, this script is going to take in these text files, it's going to format them nicely, and it is going to put them into the master daily note for this particular day. And that was version 1, a synchronization script in a sense. Take in these files, there'd be maybe 4 or 5 of them for that day, format them nicely, put them in the daily note, delete the original little snippets. And then the next thing was, well, what about photos? Okay, well, tell ChatGPT to expand the script so that if it sees a photo sitting in the archive or in the library, it actually is in a folder called Daily. So if you see something in this inbox folder that's called Daily, process it, put it somewhere. The photos then led to, okay, what about audio notes? If I want to record audio, how do I get that in my journal? Well, Day One could take an audio file that it would record, it could transcribe it, it could put the transcription in the note. That was another ask of ChatGPT, can you do this? And it said yes, and it even had ways where I could do offline photo or offline audio transcription. So I can just upload an audio file to iCloud Drive, it'll transcribe it on my MacBook, it will then plop it into the daily note. You kind of see where this feature creep is going, but the cool thing is with AI and with being able to ask it to just code these things in, I could be thinking about what features do I need and add them in. And then what features did day one not even have that I'd like to have? Okay, so when we left off, we were talking about replicating day one's functionality, being able to ingest audio and transcribe it, being able to use little snippets of text. Well, why stop there? One of the things day one could do, but I never really wanted to do it because I didn't know how big it would balloon up the size of my day one archive, was video. Video obviously takes up a lot of space and can also be kind of unruly to do over mobile, because of the space requirements. I figured out what I wanted with it. I wanted to basically have the ability to ingest video, transcode it to a smaller size, because it's not the original copy. It's not the only copy of the video. I'll have the original copy somewhere else, and put it in the vault at a smaller file size. So that's what I did. Now when it sees a video file, if the video file is under 25 megabytes, it just plops it into the archive. If it's over 25 megabytes, it transcribes it down to a mobile-friendly format and puts that in. That's something that I can control and tweak, that day one might have given me the option to say how big of a file do I want to keep the original of, how big of a file do I want to transcode. But it's nice to have complete control over this. To say, no, this is the size I'm comfortable with. This is when I want you to transcode the file. So at this point, with my Python script that ChatGPT created, I basically had all the abilities that day one had. And moving forward, I don't need to pay for $25 a year for day one. I can do all this local, and I'm happier with it because I have the actual files. I'm not waiting on a vendor who could change their database format, could make their format easier or harder for me. I have the control, which is something I value. So at this point, we're about halfway through our walk, and we are at the old rail yard turntable. And the old roundhouse used to be where I'm walking right now. So if we look over here, you can actually see where they've left the turntable in and put a fence around it, even though that really doesn't stop too many people who really want to get down in there. But we have our turntable and water tower. It's kind of nice to be able to have a space that was industrial that now is a green space for recreation. We've had about 3 or 4 other people pass us on the walk that I haven't recorded. Just a nice Sunday morning. So at this point, like I said, I've replicated day one's functionality. Day one could do all these things, but then I realized I have other pieces that I've never been happy with my integration of. So for example, I have a open source piece of software called Monica CRM. Monica is a customer relations manager, that's the CRM part, for your personal life. So if you think about those questions that we often have as adults, things like, when is so-and-so's birthday? Or how many kids does so-and-so have again? And what are their ages? And what did I give my father for Father's Day last year? All of these things that would be helpful to know, but we don't really track them perhaps, or if we do, we track them in a bunch of different places. Monica CRM allows you to create a person record for each of these things, and you can update that record. So if a friend's birthday is coming up, Monica knows that I years ago figured out what birthday it was and how old they were going to be, and it can give me a reminder. And it does. It sends me an email 7 days out, 30 days out. It says, hey, so-and-so's birthday is coming up. Little things like that. The problem is, because I self-host it and I don't always keep track of these things, I forget to update it. I forget to go in and say, oh yeah, it was so-and-so's birthday, and I got them this gift, or I at least sent them a happy birthday text. So I had another script written that was a Monica check-in script. Monica supports a API. The script basically pulls the list of contacts, figures out whose birthday is coming up, figures out whose birthday has recently happened, and it knows about a small group of people that I like to keep in contact with, that I regularly check in with. And it can ask me, say, hey, when was the last time you talked to so-and-so? When was the last time you did this? And after I answer it, it kind of interviews me. It can then write all of that data back to Monica so that I have those things tracked. In essence, this is, instead of me having to go in and look at a whole long list of my contacts and say, oh yeah, I talked to them. Oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. It can just prompt me. Say, when was the last time you did talk to this person? And keep all the records up to date. And of course, it can then keep records up to date in my Obsidian Markdown vault. So I have not only a Monica entry in Monica's database, which is, the back end is MariaDB. I have a Markdown file for that person that is synchronized, so that I can easily look it up even if I don't have the login to Monica at that moment readily available. And finally, the last thing that I always kind of wanted to do something with, but I never really had an idea what it was, is my Google Timeline location data. Timeline is this feature in Google Maps that records where you were. It can tell you how often you visit certain places. It can tell you where your daily tracks were for that day. It's a nice feature if you're curious about that stuff. Google doesn't really like the feature as much anymore because, as you can imagine, it's a giant liability that they're tracking all of this. Where is everyone at? In fact, 2 years ago, Google pulled it out of the web version of Maps. And now the architecture is built in such a way that your Android or iPhone can use Timeline, but it encrypts the timeline data on device, stores the encrypted value in Google's cloud, and does this encryption-decryption process on device. So you can't actually look it up on the web anymore. It's not accessible in Google Maps web interface, but you can still use it on your device, and you can still export it as a plain text JSON file from your device. So if you have the JSON file, which I do from my device, and you want to make sense of the 30-some megabytes that it is for me, because I have timeline data that actually goes all the way back to 2010 in some spots, what are you supposed to do with that? I mean, you could use Google Maps on your device and look at it, but I wanted to be able to document my trips, and part of that was, what time did I leave that day, and where did I stop, and who did I see, and those sorts of things. So again, ChatGPT, another Python script that will parse that JSON file, and I can export day-by-day travel logs of where my device was, and presumably where I was too, and either do that over the whole week of the vacation or do it over a single day and get a very nice Markdown file that has my travel log in it. As I've told a couple of people, if my phone is tracking where I'm at all the time, which our phones always are, I might as well be able to use that data for something fun and be able to see where I went and how long I was there, and look up things like, when was the last time I was at this location? The script can do all of those things as well. So what we basically have built, or I've built over the last month, is a replacement for a number of products. Day one got translated from a proprietary database to open Markdown files. The input scripts that day one provided, I've just replicated in Google Shortcut or in Apple Shortcuts. And I can always edit the files directly if I want to. Monica CRM is now getting updated regularly because it actually can ask me. I can run the interview once a week, and it will say, when did you talk to this person? And within the week, I remember that. I remember that I had a text, with so-and-so 3 days ago. And then my Google timeline data, I can export whenever I like and analyze using another script. Now, there are, of course, implications for writing your own scripts. They can break. You need to make sure they're documented. You need to audit them every so often. But it's a really nice option to have so that when you take videos or you take video blogs like this, or you go travel, or you do any number of things that might be part of your life, you can look back on them in a format that will not make your eyes water in the future. So we've now gone about 2.2 miles on our walk this morning. We'll do the end of the walking trail, which is on Highway 8. Highway 8 is an east-west route that goes straight up to the Mississippi River. I'm about 10 miles from the river as I record this. And if you've ever done any research on the history of American music, specifically blues and Delta blues, you will be aware of Highway 61, which is about a mile to the east of us here. The intersection of 61 and US 49 up in Clarksdale, Mississippi is about 45 minutes from here, and that is the legendary spot where bluesman Robert Johnson is rumored to have sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play the blues. Of course, there's very little historical documentation on that meeting, so it is one of the great stories of American music. Probably doesn't have the same level of documentation as this video does, taking place about an hour south of there. Anyway, Cleveland, Mississippi is fairly quiet this time of year since this is late July, but in the winter and in the fall, when the college kids come back, it'll be a little bit more active. This area that I'm walking on specifically will be the home of 50 Nights of Lights, which is a giant Christmas light display that goes on for 50 nights from early November to just after the New Year. But right now, this area we're walking on, which would have a tunnel of lights, they typically put 26 lighted arches right here. Right now, it's more open, less Christmassy. Well, we have now reached the northern end of the walking trail. Turns around at the flagpole here. This is Highway 8. And you see our downtown shopping area known as Cotton Row. But that is all I have. Hopefully you've had an interesting time listening to me talk about building your own journaling and live blogging setup. I recorded this on an Insta360 Luna with the Luna Ultra with the Insta360 mic that came with the creator pack on that. And I'll cut it together later, send it over to Todd, and it will become hopefully, MobileViews number 620. I will be traveling the next couple of weeks using all of this stuff that I have built to document my travels. So I will next be on MobileViews in the middle of August. You'll have special guest co-hosts that will do a very good job of keeping you informed. Until then, have a great time. I've been the good Dr. John Westfall, as Todd says, and I will see you in the future.